Which is the best VSO? I have my opinion, right? Usually when people say VSO, it's Veteran Service Organization or Veteran Service Officer, and you'll hear the big three always come up, the big three VSOs, which are VFW, the DAV, and the American Legion, which are all VSOs, but they do so much more than just VA disability claims. They're lobbying, they're testifying in front of Congress, they're within the state's House, Senate, the House and the Senate at the state level. They do all kinds of stuff. But in my opinion, the best VSO are going to be your county and your state VSOs. These are paid VSOs. Yes, a VSO with the VFW could be paid as well, but there are some volunteers as well. Your county and state are going to be paid. And it's just, in my opinion, that's where your cream of the crop VSOs are going to be. So, for instance, in Virginia, they have the Department of Veteran Services of Virginia. Those are all VSOs that can help you submit your disability claims. They understand Virginia benefits, okay, where the VFW might not understand that in full. And Maryland has the same thing, Arizona, Texas. I mean, you name your state, you got a VSO in there. That's my personal opinion on who is the best VSO if I had to choose one. Jason, I'm going to shoot it over to you.
All right. So this is kind of complicated, and I want to try to make it simple. So one, absolutely, I agree. It's important to make the distinction between VSO and VSO. It is what it is, right? So VSO, Veteran Service Organization, like you said, you know, all the different entities out there, they have a great place of which they help to function stuff, and that's great. They also offer accredited services. Then you have your veteran service officers who function in office within typically a county throughout the different states. Now, there's a couple different routes you could go to figure that out. One, you could just go to your county and your city and figure out, you know, veteran services, and you can kind of figure it out that way. There's also the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers. So it's an association, and you can go on their website and, you know, then kind of backtrack from there into your neck of the woods. Now, as far as who's the best, look, it's a people business, right? You could have somebody who's paid and, you know, they're totally funded. They have the greatest, they have everything they need. And for all intents and purposes on paper, they should be dynamic. But if they don't care, then that's going to show. So I think that you really need to, I guess, depending on the complexity, right? I mean, there's just so much. If you're working with somebody and you have this feeling of which they don't really care, they're not answering my questions, they're not helping guide me the way I need help. Everybody needs help at different levels, right? Shop around, find another VSO that you could work with. You cannot, by the way, you cannot have more than one, so 2, 3, 4. You can't have a bunch of different accredited representatives representing you. They will submit a form to the VA. It's essentially, it's kind of like a power of attorney. It's an appointment of an accredited rep. So they're going to appoint you, and then when you appoint a new accredited rep, it negates the prior one. So, for example, if you started working with DAV, you weren't happy with them, then you went to a county veteran service officer and you appointed them, that appointment will negate DAVs. If you go back to DAV and say, hey, can you check the status of my claim? They're not going to be able to. I will give you a couple tips here. One, in my opinion, and again, it's a people thing. I mean, you could have somebody dynamic. I mean, there's always going to be exceptions to most of this stuff, sadly. So a helpful hint would be if your representative has what's called a PIV card. It's kind of like the current CAC cards with the military, right? So your ID card in the military today has a little computer chip on it that you slide in and you punch in your code. To authenticate it's you, it's basically just to sign or acknowledge and get emails and that type of stuff, which is great. But there's a PIV card on the VA side for affiliated representatives with the VA, and it allows those accredited representatives to be able to remote desktop into the VBMS system and track your claim and watch. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that that person is, or has the ability anyway, to be a little more on it for you. I know plenty of veteran service organization part-time representatives that do not. I even knew some that were full-time. Like, I do this 5 days a week, and they did not have a PIV card. So what did they have to do? Hey, I can't check the status of my claim. They'd have to call to another office of theirs in the state, and then have that person then check for them. It's a little more hurdles along the way, I believe. So all that, to boil it down, to me, I would say a full-time person, because they'll have the experience. You'd rather have somebody who's doing claims every single day, and a lot of them, because that's going to build the experience. Ideally, in my situation, in my mind, and this is just a geographic thing, if you're in a small, 500 person town, in a county that has, 30,000 people, in a small state, you might not have this. But if you have a more populated area, going to an office that has 5, 6, 7, 10 people working in it is advantageous, because then they could bounce things off of each other if they need to. So size matters as far as that's concerned, as far as resources and brain power, if they come across something that's a little quirky. So full-time rep, ideally somebody who's paid, because they're even more so, got the resources they need. Then they have a PIV card, which is that remote desktop into the VA system to kind of track and follow it along with you. And then with all that, if it doesn't quite feel right, even if that office has more than one person, you can ask, hey, look, do you mind if I work with somebody else? I just feel like we're not, connecting right. You could talk to the manager there, whatever. My rule was, look, no hard feelings. Look, everybody doesn't connect with everybody. You're going to have some people that are just kind of, ships passing in the night. You say something, it's not coming across right, and that's fine, right? It's about you and your claim. You need to find the right person for you to be able to have the conversation and get the things that you need. I'm going to throw out one more thing. I know I was talking for a long time, Clay.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I think that it is vital that people do the footwork on their side, right? Understand, it's these types of videos, right? Where, I mean, not this one specifically, but the ones where we talk about what's it take to have a quality claim? What do you need to document? What kind of evidence do you need? File an intent to file. You can do that yourself, right? You can call the VA, set that up. You don't need to go see a veteran service organization or officer to do that. Do that. Start documenting your claim. Start getting all the things you need. Start building your evidence. Start thinking about secondaries, right? These are important aspects that you as the individual can then bring to the table, and let that veteran service organization or officer or accredited rep be the person to really kind of look through it, make sure the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and then they could bring up a few questions from their perspective as they're helping you to put it together. So I think that, like you say, the education piece and information piece is vital to the success of your claim. Do not rely heavily on anybody else to do it for you, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, I totally agree, especially with that last point, Jason. If you choose, which is a choice, by the way, if you choose to not do the legwork for your claim, that's okay, right? That is a choice that you can make, but the consequence of that is you are relying on a solid VSO, right? You're assuming that person's a solid VSO, right? We're giving them the benefit of the doubt and say that they are. But then it goes further than that. If you don't do the legwork for your claim, and that means you probably don't understand your evidence. You just know it's there somewhere. When you go to your CMP exam, you're not able to talk about your evidence because you don't know what your evidence is. I'll give you a personal story of mine. For my migraine claim, I had no idea. I had an in-service complaint from 2012 after I got back from Afghan. It was a one-liner complaint and a post-employment health assessment. I had no idea that was there. Okay. Had I done the legwork and looked at my service treatment record, I could then talk about that during the exam. It not only helps me understand my evidence, but it also walks the C&P examiner. So it comes down to, if you don't do the legwork, that's okay. But there's a consequence with that, is you're relying on the VSO and the C&P examiners to do what they're supposed to do. Hopefully that works out in your favor. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. The last thing I'll say on VSOs, Jason, is shop around. Just like you would shop around, you know, for a box of Pop-Tarts. I'm only saying that because there's a box right there. You know, if you don't like strawberry, go look at chocolate fudge. That's my personal favorite. They got s'mores, blueberry, all types of flavors for Pop-Tarts. Same with VSOs. You walk in the VFW, if you're not vibing out with that person, that's okay. Just say respectfully, saying, hey, you know, I'm gonna keep searching elsewhere. You can use another rep at the VFW that would still fall into the 2122, I think is the form used for power of attorney. You can go to your state VSO, shop around until you find that VSO that you're like, you know what, I trust this person to submit the appropriate forms, you know, help me figure me out, maybe look at secondaries, whatever the case may be. Shop around would be my number one advice for VSOs. Do you want to add anything, Jason?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, and this is just one of those little stories too, and it's going to sound ridiculous to most people who watch these channels, because we talk about what you're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. But let's flash back to, you know, the first time that I ever tried to stumble through a claim myself, and it sounds ridiculous, right? Like, I'm just self-diagnosing. I have this, I have that, I have this, I have that. Submit. No evidence, no nothing, no nexus, no medical evidence. I'm just self-diagnosing, and submitted that. And it's like, why would you even do that, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't know. I'm thinking to give myself some sort of reason why. The VA has medical professionals. If I say that I have signs or symptoms or whatever of a condition, or I think I have a condition, I think that they would run me through maybe one of their doctors, right? Is what I thought. Oh, no. You got to go pay for yourself and go. I mean, for a lot of cases, right? You got to just go to a civilian doctor yourself and pay out of pocket and get that done. Now the VA has opened up to many more veterans than ever before to allow medical, services through the VHA. But before, it was only a handful of ways you can get into that, and I didn't even know how to do that. So I just didn't know, right? So not educated, not informed, and just throwing things against the wall, and then going, the VA sucks. Well, no. You didn't read any of the rule book, right? You can't jump into playing Monopoly and not understand how to play it. You're just going to get frustrated, right? So all that to say is that, a veteran service officer, accredited rep, whoever, will help make sure that at least you're providing the information you need to support your claim. Cool. Where they may fall short, and this just depends, this is the people business, bandwidth issues and funding, which then creates the bandwidth issues, is they might not have the ability to spend hours over the course of months with you. It's just the nature of the beast. So the more that you're knowledgeable and the more that you know what you're doing, the better. Go in prepared. Go in with the questions that you do have. Go in with the strategy that you do have. The times are so different now, right? Over the past, 5 years or so, with videos being out there on YouTube, stuff on the internet through like Reddit or Hadit, right? That type of stuff really has helped because of stories from veterans to other veterans about their situation and so forth. So with that, there's a lot of information out there, and read or watch stuff so you can be prepared and take that to your accredited rep.
Oh yeah. I mean, VSOs, If I was to, this is the last thing we'll say, and then we'll transition, because I can talk about VSOs all day. It comes down to, the perfect claim. What that would look like is it's two pieces. One, the veteran understands their evidence from service. They have current documentation of that condition, hopefully a diagnosis, but at minimum, you want like a treatment plan, medication, physical therapy, whatever. And then they take that evidence, walk into a VSO and say, hey, here, do with this what you need to do. That VSO, I promise, that VSO will be like, man, I love this guy. He's prepared. He knows exactly what he wants to claim. If that's the relationship, you're starting off on the right foot, right? At least that's what would be the perfect claim, in my opinion. Now, I do want to transition to. Go ahead.
What's the contrast of that? So now here's the perfect scenario. Yeah. What's the nightmare situation for one? I want to see what your
situation. I'll talk about the first time I submitted a claim. I went to a VSO with the state of Virginia, DVS of Virginia, and I had no idea what I wanted to claim. I walked in and was like, hey, I'm here to talk about VA stuff. And he was like, okay, what do you want to claim? And I responded, and I quote, I don't know. Now, that person had asked me, he was like, well, what were you seen for? What about mental health? And he looked at my deployment sheet and he was like, okay, we're probably going to submit mental health. He was like, what about your back? What about your wrist? I had surgery in 2011. Those were the easy ones that the VSO walked me through. But what we missed were my one-liner complaint for migraines. We missed IBS. Presumptives for PACT Act wasn't a thing then. And so all those were essentially missed, which did suck. I definitely lost probably a year and a half, I think. I'll have to do the math, maybe 2 years of back pay there. But that's the result of I don't know.
Right.
And I had a good VSO, right? Imagine if I didn't have a good VSO. Right. It'd be a lot worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and here's the funny thing is that is real, right? People come in and they're like, I don't know, you tell me. And it's like, what? Like, I don't know you.
Yeah. Here's
so then it's like, okay, you're trying to flip through things, right? And meanwhile, you got 14 people sitting in the lobby and you're trying to flip through this thing. So you're going to miss stuff, right? So then what happens too is that the rep starts asking the veteran, all these questions. Well, what about this? How about that? How about this? How about that? Do you ever have any issues with that? Blah, blah, blah. You start going down that list and it's just ramblings, right? They're just kind of throwing it out there. Anything. I mean, I'm just starting from the head to the toe. I don't know you, right? And I'm just asking stuff. Sometimes people get irritated too. Like, why are you asking me all these questions? And it's like, it's all right here. No, so the more you're dead on with that first one, the more that you can do up front, the better off you're going to be with your claim. And it's almost like, here's the solid things that we're going to file for that I know, because I know what a nexus is and I know what evidence is. And I know what the VA is kind of looking for. Cool. Then there's this other subsection of, I'm not sure. I have these. I don't know if I can somehow get these also in there. And then the VSO will help you figure out, okay, yeah, we can, let's search how this would work as as a secondary. And let's see this, let's see that. And maybe something is on a presumptive list. And they're like, oh no, that's a presumptive. So you don't even need to worry about that now. And, and that's really, you want to have some questions. You want to have your list of conditions that that you can push through with your nexus and your evidence, and then your I don't knows. Here's my other conditions. What can we do with these? And man, that would make it super easy, super smooth. Yep. And having that open mind, right, to be able to have the conversations and not get offended with 1,000 questions.
And it comes down to the choice.
Totally.
We make the choice. If you're watching this, right, ignorance is no longer an option. Now so you have to make the choice. If you're ignorant about the process, like I was, like Jason was, hey, Well, welcome to every single veteran who submitted a claim, right?
Right. And then it goes back
uh,
to the thing that I've been saying lately, right? Treat this like it's $1 million or multi-million-dollar deal, because guess what? It is. You add compensation and your VA medical that's going to cover you for life. The dollars are astronomical. So treat it that way. Put a little effort in. It's amazing to me how many people put in just very little. So if you imagine if you put in a little more.
yeah.
All right, back to you, Clay. We beat
Okay.
this horse down.
So we did, but that was good. All of that. There's so much more in VSOs. Yes, I would argue every veteran should, at a minimum, have a VSO with their claim. Even if you submit yourself, right, which you can do, still sign that 2122 with the VSO and build that relationship. That would be like bare minimum. Now transitioning into